Guys, what's up? JK with Reboot here. Today we're going to be talking about unworthiness and why your out-of-control behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation creates that feeling within you. Now, unworthiness, that feeling of not being worthy of anything, that feeling of being inadequate to the tasks around you or to anything in your life, comes from three main places. It comes from family, it comes with our interaction with people outside of our family, and it also comes from the beliefs that we have within us. Now, feelings of failure and feelings of inadequacy usually come hand in hand. And I'll give you a quick example to illustrate this. Now, most of you may have heard this before, but when I was growing up as a child, I was considered to be slow by my teachers at school. And this could have been because I struggled with ADD and dyscalculia. I couldn't calculate, but back then nobody cared and they just thought, hey, you were slow. There weren't any diagnosis for any of these things. So everyone said, JK, slow. My parents noticed it. They noticed that my younger sisters were quicker than me. The reality was that they were suited to certain tasks that I wasn't. So it wasn't until I was an adult that I figured out things I was good at. So back then, when everyone was telling me I was slow, well, then you become the slow kid in class and you start believing it. You start taking on those beliefs that you are not as good as other people. And every time I failed at something, or every time I couldn't do something and they said, JK, it's because you're slow. Or every time there was a task to do and I wasn't chosen for that because, well, JK is slow, JK, maybe you should just sit back for this one, you can't handle it. Well, these things start reinforcing your sense of inadequacy, and that's what it did for me. And that was one of the bases of my behavior with pornography. I started using pornography to medicate that, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail just so you understand exactly how that happens. But before that, let me give you a second example. Let's use something that happens for many men in their 20s and in their teens, and then this carries on to later on in life, and that's PIED, which is porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Now, sometimes when you struggle with PIED, and most men don't know what it is, you just realize that without pornography and without masturbation, you are not able to sustain an erection. And you have a sexual encounter and you realize that you're not able to perform. Your partner may say something to you which might make you feel humiliated, or they might literally degrade you and put you down for not being able to perform. On the other hand, they may not say anything, but you may take on a lot of shame. You may feel emasculated. You may feel less than a man because you are not able to perform. Some men know it's as a result of their porn use, and some have no idea why it's happening. There are also a lot of men who develop suicidal tendencies and suicidal thoughts because they just don't know when there's going to be an end to their porn-induced erectile dysfunction, especially if you've visited with many experts, if you've done a lot of research online, if you've used medication or herbs to help you and nothing works. That can get very, very depressing. Now, there are some men who begin to feel unworthy of their relationship, unworthy of even trying to get into a relationship, unworthy of women that they find attractive because the thought process is, well, what's the point? I'm never going to be able to satisfy her anyway. And this leads to feelings of humiliation and degradation, which means that you actually feel that you deserve to be humiliated and degraded. And guess where this shows up? This shows up in the type of pornography you watch. So it may come from the way that you were raised as a child, but these days I've started to see more and more men who struggle with porn, and the genre that they struggle with has a theme of humiliation, of domination, of degradation. And this usually ties back to something that happened in their adult life, many times with porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Something else interesting also happens. Now, you're already into pornography, which is humiliating. You're already into stuff that degrades you. And you are still struggling with porn. You can't quit porn. You don't know how to end your PIED. And you already know sometimes that if you end your behavior with pornography and masturbation, that's the first step before you can start dealing with this PIED thing. Unfortunately, you just can't deal with the porn and masturbation part. So the fact that you struggle with it so much further reinforces the belief for you that you deserve to be humiliated. And you end up in this cycle. It becomes this messy soup of inadequacy, of unworthiness, of shame. Now it becomes very difficult for you to seek out help because of the final thing that happens. And this final thing is that you become committed to hiding your addiction from others because you feel unworthy. You feel unworthy of redemption. So that becomes who you are. It goes from being just a feeling that you experience all the time to a temperament. You're just a person who feels unworthy, and in some cases it becomes a part of your personality. You start demonstrating it in everything that you do. And at that point it's very difficult, and that's one of the things that makes it so hard to seek help. Now some of you may be watching this YouTube video and maybe something clicked for you, or you've been watching a lot of videos, you've been reading a lot of books, but you're just like, great, I already know this, JK, what do I need to do to step out of it? Well, here's the solution. The solution on your own first is to start building up wins in your life, okay? You have this belief that you are unworthy, and that's okay. You don't need to change it right away. In fact, you're not even going to be able to change it right away. But you can start finding things that prove to you that you are worthy. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of a sexual relationship. You are worthy of being helped out of this problem that you have. And I know that's one of the things that stops many men from reaching out for help, because they're embarrassed. They're like, I'm gonna fuck up. I don't deserve it. Sometimes you're not even conscious of it. It's just there, it just sits with you, this unworthiness. And when people talk about pornography, when people talk about your struggle, all these feelings start manifesting themselves. So you might be feeling it right now as you watch this video. As I mentioned earlier, building up wins is one of the easiest ways to begin to feel worthy. And you can do it by taking very little steps in things that you do. Now on my YouTube channel, there are a lot of tips for things that you can do to control your out of control sexual behavior. Setting up boundaries is a win. So for instance, installing a filter on your device, that's a win. It doesn't seem like a big deal. And again, we're not trying to end your behavior with pornography right away. We're not trying to do any hard mode bullshit, okay? We're just trying to stack up little wins because we're trying to rebuild your self-esteem. So installing a filter is a win. Joining our Facebook group, it's a free group, and asking for an accountability partner and communicating with them, that's a win. Getting on a call with me, that's a win. Or getting on a call with a therapist, or going for a meeting. Those little things are wins. Deleting all the pornography on all your devices. Getting rid of a device that always triggers you. Setting up a boundary with a person who triggers you. All these things are wins, and I highly recommend getting a dedicated journal and starting to write our 3 recovery wins every evening. And that's one of the ways that you can slowly start building up your self-esteem. But the main point of this video, my brother, is to let you know that you are not the only one who feels unworthy. I felt unworthy for years. It took me a long time to build up my self-confidence. And one of my goals with Porn Reboot is to make this process not necessarily easier, because the truth is it's not easy, but to make it a simpler process for you, to show you a system that you can use to go from unworthiness to feeling worthy. In fact, we've had some men who have gone from unworthiness to entitlement. And again, entitlement is not a bad thing. In our culture today, a lot of people say like, oh, he feels entitled. No, it's not necessarily the case. If you feel entitled to good things and you're willing to put in the work and you have a healthy sense of self, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with feeling entitled to dating somebody that you really like. You don't have to settle for somebody that you're not attracted to. There's nothing wrong with feeling entitled to be free of pornography. I deserve that. I'm going to do whatever it takes, and then I'm going to develop the self-control. I'm going to rewire my brain and get to a point where this isn't something in my life. I've never been there before. It's just something that I imagine. It's an ideal for me, but I am going to accomplish it one day. I believe that. And that's the mindset I had in my recovery. But it began by writing and stacking up all these little wins in my life. And slowly, my self-confidence started improving. I started taking risks in other areas of my life, things that I wouldn't do because I didn't feel that I was worthy of them. I started doing them. Let me tell you something, brothers. Even standing here in front of this camera was something I never imagined I could do years ago. All right, it would blow my mind if somebody were to show me something from the future and say, JK, this is you in front of a camera, speaking to these men about your behavior with pornography, speaking to men about their shame and your shame and all the things that you went through. I wouldn't have believed it, but it all began with wins. So I want you to know that, okay? You can be saved, you can end this behavior, you will end this behavior. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you want access to free resources to help you in this journey, guys, just go to the link in my description. There's a bunch of stuff that's free. Go there, pick something that works for you, and just get started. All right, I'll see you later in the week. Have a wonderful day.